So, this program is about significance. I'll tell you a story and then ask you a question, and I'll ask it to Jim Riefenberger. We say that life is like a race, and I'm thinking about this guy I used to work with, and he was in sales, and he was just not good at it. Um, I don't know why, but he was always at the bottom third of the sales force, which meant he wasn't making very much money. And it was straight commission. So the boss was never going to fire him because even a little bit is better than nothing. And there was an extra desk. So why not? And you come to find out that this guy had gone from one bad sales job to another to another. Why? Because he was not good at it. It wasn't his forte, right?
Doesn't a resume
Oh,
kind of do that to you? Because what was your former job? Sales. What'd you do
yeah.
before that? Sales.
Yeah.
I know, but like sometimes your best friends and the people who know you're like, you should maybe do this.
And I think a lot of times people do say that. Hey, why don't you find something else? And they're trying to hint, but you don't hear it.
Yeah.
I knew a gal who was a nurse. I'm laughing because if you knew her, you'd look and say, "You're a nurse?" Because she had none of the qualities of human compassion. And she would complain, I hate sick people, she would say. And she'd talk about this latest person who was complaining. And I never said this out loud, but you think, why are you a nurse if you, quote, hate sick people, right?
And the third step of significance, there's this thing that we go through in the workbook that has to do filtering your passions and then not just the idea of what a passionate topic or thing is. It also goes down to like that underlying need thing and it helps us clarify a lot of things. But one is like, what would you do if I couldn't fail?
Hmm.
And so you can get blocked by this idea that most of our thinking and jobs have been survival instincts.
And maybe that was most probably from something that happened early in life that just kind of set them down that road.
Well, if you've always had to have just enough money to pay the bills and just enough money, then you're worried about the job and trying something else. I'll probably take this conversation like this. This is like we've talked about this being like some from a motivational urgency. If this is our life and we're running maybe the coming on the last bell lap, do we want to make just go for it or not? Right. And I don't know if this is a truly accurate, I'm just gonna, it comes from my head, a statistic. I'd say about 80% of people don't really work in their passion. Maybe 20 do.
I would agree with that.
Now, here's why I think that is true. If you're really passionate about something and your workday was done, and there's a few hours here and there, if you're passionate about it, you learn about it, work at it, you'll even do it for no compensation because you're finding some value and you think there's something to work for. So all that work is compiling into your mastermind here. And well, if you haven't done that for 10 years or 5 years, you have nothing that you've built any confidence on, right? So to say that this won't be work would be wrong, but to say that that's the kind of work that is necessary. Like your buddy, I would probably bet that your buddy on a sales level all those years, if he wasn't full commission, if he was on like a support team where he got a team commission, but he was able to like help with part of it and bring the service, customer service to the level that made a difference in the sale. He would have probably loved the teamwork of it and not had to do it alone.
And I want to say, because this is what we think, well, if I give up on this course, I will have wasted all of that time. And I want to say, no, that's absolutely not the case. Like, let's say, for example, I wanted to be a writer, but instead, all I did was this. Okay, you know what mostly happens when a kid who's 20 starts to write? They got nothing to write about. They don't have enough life experience. If you got knocked around by life and finally circle back to a word processor when you're 40, guess what you have? You got a lot of stuff to write about. You have the depth of the experience of life. In a similar way, if you, as you talked about this friend of mine who, if you failed in sales, okay, you failed in that element of sales, but you learned a lot about what you would be better at. Maybe customer service, maybe a troubleshooting, maybe follow up, because you know how it is with sales. There are people who just come charging in and sell, but then they can't do the service after the sale. You might be great at that. And use what you've learned in the pain of life and now apply it to what you're truly gifted at. And just imagine what that could look like.
I think it's the failure, it's the lack of confidence, it's the lack of even just putting yourself out there that allows yourself to be stuck, right?
You
Um,
know, you know, I've written 6 books, and I just remember vividly thinking when I was in my middle 40s how disappointed I would be with myself if I never wrote a book. I just wanted to have that name author after my name. But I did it. And now I have that. And, I was actually at a place where people waited in line to have me sign a book. And I stepped out of myself and I thought, wow, huh.
I feel like that is the thing that is the fear part. Just start. And then let's see what they'll tell you they like.
Hmm.
And then if you hear what they like, then I guess that's your pilot test, right? And then no failure. I'd like to know if I'm going right or left or straight ahead. That's all.
Well, and I would also say to be true to yourself and what God called you to be, right? So I could do a lot of things, but I feel like I'm called to encourage people through stories to help them be significant. And Jim, you have a very similar path. That's why we're joined this way. And I'm absolutely certain we could have more followers if all we talked about was sports betting, but I don't want to do that.
And I think when Jesus said, "Well done, good and faithful servant," right? It is also a comment to the effort or the action, not the failure, but the forging forward and finishing well, finishing the last lap like it's supposed to be done.
And I've had a few jobs in my life that compensated pretty well, but I thought to myself, this is not, it's not worthy. Okay, well, Jim, we're going to let you go for now. In the meantime, any advice for people who are feeling in the funk and wondering if maybe they've missed the bell lap or missed the grab at the brass ring?
It's never too late, and it only just takes one step of confidence.
If you need any help or have any questions, reach out to us. I'm Jeff Gould.
And I'm Jim Riefenberger.
God bless.